just because the door is closed right now doesn't mean that the door is closed forever. And so like keep those opportunities in your back pocket, get wins, market those wins, right? Keep engaged with those customers, and you'll be surprised when you can go back and revisit, right?
Welcome to FinOps in Action. I'm your host, Alon Arvatz. Each week, I'll sit down with FinOps experts to explore the toughest challenges between FinOps and engineering. This show is brought to you by Point 5, empowering teams to optimize cloud costs with deep detection and remediation tools that drive action. Hello, everyone. Welcome to FinOps in Action. Today, we have a very, very special guest that I'm really excited to host. He actually built multiple FinOps offering and capabilities in-house and ran multiple FinOps groups at massive scales. He used to work for AWS until he moved to a FinOps leadership role. And he also has a family music band. We should talk about that for sure. I'm happy to welcome Director of FinOps at Adobe, Sridhar Ayala. Sridhar, how are you today?
I'm doing really well, Alon. Thank you for having me here today. I really appreciate it.
It's all my honor. Sridhar, please share with us what was this one thing that you got wrong when you started your FinOps career?
Alon, it's hard to just limit it to one thing, right? There were so many things that we've done wrong and we've learned from and improved over, the past decade plus that I've been doing this. But I think the first mistake that I ever made that has stuck with me, and I think is still a mistake that many FinOps practitioners make all the time, is leading with data without any context, right? We go through the CUR, the bill, whichever cloud you're on. We see, utilization information. We see, things that are idle. We see all these opportunities in dollar signs. And it's just so easy, to say, like, why don't we just go downsize or turn this off or take action? And that's easy when I'm looking at a spreadsheet. When I toss that over to the fence, I don't know what's on their roadmap. Do they have 5 features due tomorrow? Do they have a CSO that they're dealing with? Do they have a bunch of regulatory and compliance issues that they have to manage? Where on their priority list is turning off 2 servers to save X dollars versus getting features out the door to generate Y revenue or avoid X penalties and compliance? So not having the complete picture or context when you send recommendations over won't lead to a high degree of success, right? And so really curating that experience, understanding your customers and what they're capable of, what's their bandwidth, prioritizing high, medium, low in level of effort is really important. And so like I remember a specific example I could call out, right? We were working with a very large beverage company. You could guess, make some of your favorite drinks. And we were looking to reduce their cost quite significantly. But what we didn't realize was this was a divestiture engagement. And so we were coming back, and this was when, things like RIs were brand new. And you're seeing 60, 70% discount with some type of commitment up front. And so we were taking recommendations of making 1 to 3 year commitments to receive those discounts. And we didn't realize that they were trying to sell this in 6 months. And so a 1 to 3 year commitment was not feasible in any way, shape, or form. And so we looked foolish with those recommendations, right, without that context. And we should have been focused on, cleaning up EBS volumes and eliminating a bunch of instances and prod environments that were no longer being used and, going through and really cleaning up the environment. And so we eventually pivoted to that. But you lose confidence, or you have a few opportunities with these customers in their ears, right, to implement these. And so you want to put your best shot forward. And so having that context, doing your research, doing your homework, right, I think is very important as a FinOps practitioner.
That's fascinating and actually resonating very well as I hear similar things from many other practitioners. You said a few very interesting things around not tossing off the fence and also being aware of context. I wonder, how do you bridge this gap today? How do you try to understand the engineering context, or you just say, oh, I don't understand, and let them do their things and let them make their priorities.
Yeah, that's difficult to balance, and I think it's dependent on the resources and the size of your organization, right? I know there are many practitioners out there who are probably smaller in size. They may have a couple individuals, and to scale, what I suggest is using tooling to help scale your organization, right? So tooling like Point Five, right? That can do the analysis, can help figure out where are the high value returns and where should you focus your energy so that you can manually go drive those while, automating some of the other stuff, right? When you get to enterprise organizations of my size and scope, right? Our FinOps organization isn't just a FinOps organization. We are really a cloud enablement organization. So when I think about FinOps, I'm not just thinking about reducing TCO, right? How do I make you spend less dollars? I'm thinking about how do I reduce engineering toil? How do I reduce number of hours? How do I take away everything that you need to worry about um, besides just focusing on your product and your service? So that could be end of life, end of support events. How am I getting you the right information to the right people at the right time so that you don't have to spend hours and cycles and sprints on that? And so our version of FinOps is really much broader than what the traditional sense is. And so for me, it's how do I improve performance? How do I improve time saved to my engineers? How do I also reduce dollars, right? I think of efficiency in that broader scale. So I have architects who are working with teams on their roadmaps and understanding their product roadmaps and figuring out where can we jump in and either provide guidance or leadership so that we can architect things efficiently from the start, right? We have a specialized program of professional services individuals or engineers that don't get paid in terms of traditional dollars. Their goal is to get paid in savings. And so if there are savings opportunities out there and it's just a lower priority on the roadmap, but the teams are willing to engage, we will loan out engineers to go work on that or remove stuff from their backlogs so that we can achieve those efficiencies. So we've gotten a lot more creative as we've scaled out because to get efficiencies at our organization, a lot of the low hanging fruit is automated, right? We have governance and policies around everything. So from EBS volume cleanup to auto right sizing of RDS environments to full scale automation of our ISP coverage. We have the highest coverage in AWS Azure across all the cloud providers than any other organization in the world, right? And we have an actuarial scientist, a colleague of mine, Ben Olson, who manages this program at scale and has less than 3% waste, right? So we do things where we can and automate things where we can, and then we move up the stack, right, to higher order problems with people. And that's kind of our philosophy is let's do no ops, low ops where we can, and then use our SMEs and our experts to go tackle the tougher challenges and to incrementally move the ball forward, because a lot of these tougher challenges, like right sizing your production environments on things that are revenue generating, that's a multi-year journey. That's not a 1 month discussion, right? And so you have to plant the seeds early for those longer engagements. And just like the portfolio that you manage, whether it's stock or bonds, right? I have long-term investments. I have short-term gains that I'm looking at, the easy stuff that I can automate to save money. And then I have stuff in between. And we're constantly addressing our portfolio, looking at the ROI and making changes and constantly reassessing it at all times.
Wow. Sridhar, you said here so many things that are just mind-blowing. And one thing in particular that I felt is really, really radical was the fact that you said that you feel like you're responsible for performance, for end of life, and things like that. And I would be really happy to drill into this and basically understand if you see it as context that you need to have when you do cost saving initiatives, or
you actually see yourself as helping your engineering teams become more performant, make sure they can handle end of life better. How do you look at it?
See, we view ourselves as part of the business. So our mission statement is to drive disciplined cloud spend for enterprise agility and margin expansion. We are in the business of expanding margin for our business, right? And so that's the way we view it, and we take it seriously. And how do you expand margin? Not just off the bottom line, but enabling engineers to go create new products and services to generate revenue. So the more time and energy and resources I free off of you to go create more money, like the better our margins are. And so I think it's expanding the FinOps mindset from just cost savings to margin expansion. And then when you start looking at that, then you can start thinking about, how do I expand margin? It's either, enabling new products and services, reducing cost, or, basically freeing up operational overhead so that we can reinvest back into the business. And, generative AI is a big space here. And all of the money that we've saved, all of the time that we're saving is getting reinvested back into the business, into things like Firefly, right? And so when we think about it, we don't think about, hey, I'm saving money for this business unit. I'm saving money so we can do cool things like Firefly. And it's very motivating to our efficiency engineers, our practitioners, and it gives us a sense of purpose, and it gives us more creativity on the types of challenges and problems we want to tackle, right? So I let the customers tell me what their problems and challenges are, right? That context is important. And so, we have things we want to work on, but there are things that the business want to work on, and we balance that. So I'll give you an example. One thing we realized early on is that you can only pick one thing, that you can put your full force and effort behind and maintain the attention span of a fragmented customer base, right? Adobe is very interesting compared to a lot of different firms, right? You have other tech firms which are monolithic tech stacks, right? That have one single product or two single products, right? And everything is kind of supporting that. And so, that has its own challenges, but it also has its advantages where, I'm really targeted and focused on a few groups of engineers. And when I make changes, I can have large scale impact. Adobe is like 40 plus products, right? Through decades of acquisitions and multiple tech stacks that interoperate with each other and have lots of downstream complexities, not to mention all the contractual vehicles that interact with each other that we have to be aware of, our consumption commitments, our pricing across the board, right? So many things that require a great deal of coordination between finance, operations, engineering, product, et cetera, right? And so when you have such a fragmented base, going in with 3 to 5 initiatives for people to look at, it's a losing cause, right? And so what we realized was we wanted to get executive buy-in and focus on one thing. Not that we would drop everything from our portfolio. We're still focusing, but our messaging was laser focused. And so in 2024, what we picked was ARM. 20% savings off of SKU price, 60% power reduction. So from a sustainability and perspective, we would be using a great deal less carbon and, way more performant. So not only just the SKU reduction, I was getting 20 to 30% performance increase. So I could start right sizing as well. And so we called it ARM 24 for 24. And our goal was to put 24% of our estate from x86, we love our Intel partners, to ARM. And it was pithy. It was a nice slogan. It was easy, but we put in a lot of work. We created all of the telemetry, all the dashboards. We had a marketing campaign. We sent emails out to show people where they are, where their directs are, right? And here's the Adobe target. Here's where you sit. You can set your own target, whatever is right for your business. Maybe you have reasons, whether it's SLAs or, the tech stack you're running. Maybe you can't have any on ARM, but that's fine, because We have a statement here, or a phrase in our organization. There is no such thing as waste, right? Like, there's no one definition of waste. Waste is only unintentional spend. As long as you're intentionally doing something, it can't be wasteful. I may have 10% utilization, but maybe I'm doing it because I feel like I need the extra overhead for compliance reasons, or I know there's an event down the line, or I'm not comfortable with the risk of hitting a peak and I'm making that intentional choice. That's fine. If I don't know I'm at 10% and I never expected to be, then that's waste, right? And so I think that's also another lesson I think FinOps practitioners need to learn, is that there's no one definition for this. So don't get tied up in it, right? Don't try to define waste at like 20% or something like that, because it's contextual. As long as teams intentionally are making the knowing decisions for their business, that's not wasteful. That's a business choice, right? And so going back to the whole campaign, we actually moved 50% of our estate to ARM by the end of 2024, right? And so we put all of our might behind it. We asked for our leadership buy-in behind it. We created the tooling and the telemetry so that people could report and track and have the idea of where they can take actions to improve their scores, right? Where am I lagging behind? And the gamification aspect of it was very huge for us, right? It wasn't, we didn't set it up as negative gamification. We set it up as, here are the top performers. And man, engineers are competitive people a lot. You know this, right? They don't like seeing other people's names on top. And the amount of people that came out of the woodworks and were comfortable to go from 2% to 50% in 1 year, right, is an incredible story. And it's a snowball effect. Once you just get a few people to show that you can do it without breaking systems, just goes downhill. So this year, our focal point, or going into next year, is CPU 26 for 26. We want our average CPU utilization to be 26% or above. We think that's a reasonable expectation across the board. And we've created an entire telemetry and marketing campaign that sends out emails at different levels. So VPs get to see what their overall tech stack looks like and how their directs are compared and how they're influencing their overall number. All the directors get all their managers, and then the managers get their individual instances and all the recommendations there. And again, it's intentional. They can come back and say, I want to set my utilization at 2% because of XYZ reasons. As long as you set a target and you know why you're setting it, I don't care, right? The rest of it will take care of itself.
Oh, Sridhar, you're challenging so many assumptions and conceptions, I think, in the industry, or at least saying that in Adobe scale, things should be handled very, very differently. You know, I had a meeting with a CIO in one of the top 5 banks in the US. And he told me, listen, we're operating at such a massive scales. We have so many engineering groups. I prefer to do something that will make 1% impact on everyone versus 50% impact, but only on 1 or 2 groups. That would make a lot bigger impact from the business in the end of the day. And I feel that you share a similar perspective, if I understand correctly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's people's attention span, right? They can only focus on one thing, and that's if you're lucky, right? So make it easy on yourself, set yourself up for success is what I've realized in that space.
Yes. And I have tons of questions. One that really pops up is around your definition for waste, where you say something that is unintentional. And I have to agree. In the end of the day, it's all about context and about why people are doing things. Sometimes it does make sense, but I feel like it makes it very, very hard to measure waste, because if it's all around intention, then how can you measure it? Like, you cannot get into people's mind. So I wonder if you have certain mechanisms to actually measure waste, or you say, hey, that's only potential waste before the engineers have to validate it.
Yeah. So we've gone through this journey for the past 3 years of defining waste. right? Is it, total addressable spend, right, as the denominator, and then what you should be spending based on, the percentage utilization we think you should be at, et cetera. It gets complicated. And to be frank, Alon, like, I think you get into a tit for tat discussion with teams on, I don't agree that that should qualify as waste. And so then you're arguing about the definition of waste versus arguing about the recommendations, right? And so I found it to be very self-defeating, and it just wasn't very useful to us. Where waste is useful is I think of it as a sales lead, right? For my team, we look at the waste. It's a lead or an opportunity for us to further investigate and do our due diligence to see if there's an opportunity. It's more of an internal tool than it is an external tool, because again, everyone's definition of waste is varying, right? And so what we decided to do this year was, I'm not going to tell you what waste is, right? I as long as you can justify to your business and your finance partners that this is an appropriate level of spend, you're going to get new customers, you're going to have new user acquisition, whatever the definition may be, or whatever reason you gave, that's between you and your finance partners. I think, and maybe God himself too. So, but like, I think where I care is that, did you look at the metrics and did you just set a target, right? And so that's what we're doing with CPU utilization, right? 26 is the Adobe target. I'm basically telling you, by setting that target, if you're below 26%, you're being wasteful, without saying you're being wasteful, right? And then you can set your target wherever you want. Maybe it's 10% for me, right? But guess what? Like, we're publishing who's leading the charge. Your VPs are still going to see that you're at 10%. And hopefully that facilitates a business discussion or a conversation, and you have the reasons. And if you don't, then the business has the tools necessary and has the outreach available to them, right, to tamp that down. But it's really about making sure that people have visibility and conversations around this, and that they're okay with it. You're not going to, especially at our scale, I'm not in the business of telling people what to do or how to run their business. We're just offering tools, and we're offering avenues for them to have reinvestment back into their business if they think the effort is worth it to them. And so that's the approach that we always take. And so have people set targets. And once people start setting targets, whether they're low or high, and it gets reported on, you'll be surprised the movement that you see. Our group, we'll eat our own dog food. We were at 8% utilization for my group. We're the FinOps group.
Oh.
And we left our instances on and didn't do anything on them. There were a couple instances. The number of dollars was nominal. So let me preface that. But we looked really bad, Alon. I mean, we were dead last out of all the organizations. And I was like, guys, what are we doing here, right? So I followed our own process. I set the target to, 30%. And the team went in, they were embarrassed, and they went and cleaned it up. And we're back at like 40% now or something like that, right? So like, that's the intent. I wanted us to think about it. I wanted me as the leader to look at this and say, is this appropriate for me? Yes or no? And I said no. And then we did something about it. Another organization, they may look at it and say 8%, the level of effort for us to go change this is not worth the savings. And we have 8 other competing activities that will generate us more opportunity and revenue. I'm not going to touch this. I'm going to set my target at 8. At least I looked at it and I thought about it, right? Like, that's really the point I want to pound home to all of the listeners and people who are in this space, is the best thing that you can get is for someone to think about it, like actively think about a recommendation or what you're putting forward. That's the most you can ask for. And then they'll make the decisions that are best for their business, and that's their prerogative, right?
That's fascinating. And I would like also to hear more about the way you do gamification. And my one specific question that I'm curious about is about the leaderboard. Do you only share who are the leaders, or do you also share with everyone who is at the bottom of the list?
We thought about it this long and hard. We don't want to create a shame list. There's a lot of research um, around this from a behavioral economics standpoint that shows this can be harmful, right? So what we do is we show the leaderboards. So the people that are top of the list, we have quarterly newsletters. We promote them, right, to say, they've done such an excellent job. They've saved X amount, or like unique types of efficiency engagements that teams have implemented. We try to highlight those. So it's a learning opportunity so other teams can scale with it, right? So what we've found is that, again, I think it's just because engineers are competitive. They don't like not seeing their name at the top. The name at the bottom, that's only motivating to get yourself off the bottom of the list. Once I'm off the bottom of the list and I'm not there, say I'm one above the bottom of the list, I'll stop trying, right? Because now I'm no longer in the shame bucket. But if I care about being at the top, I'm always going to keep pushing, right? And improving.
And do you see also people collaborate? Like they see someone else on the leaderboard is like, oh, how did you get there? And do you have some advice for me so I will also be there on the top? Do you see these conversations happening as a result of it?
All the time, right? People don't like seeing, especially when they see how far they are from the top. We've had people come up to us and say, how do we improve? We have the reports available to us, or have engaged our organizations with active ideas where they're like, we need resourcing to help us with this. So can you assist, right? And so these types of gamification activities have definitely facilitated discussions and allowed for teams to have more frank discussions on what can be done and can't. And so I highly recommend, rewarding people who are doing the right thing and highlighting them, right? And emulating behavior of top teams is what we want, right? And so promoting it is an easy way to market them.
And it sounds like you talk a lot about the marketing your activities, marketing the goal setting. Do you feel that it's a big part of your job to be a marketer or someone that needs to, spread certain ideas across the organization?
I'd say it's 80% of the job, right? I mean, Alon, a lot of things we come up with aren't rocket science, right? Like I'm obviously oversimplifying. There's complexities, there's upstream, downstream dependencies, all sorts of things that we have to work through. But at the end of the day, I'm just trying to right size your instance. I'm trying to shut something down, right? Like this isn't rocket science, right? Now, when we get to where our organization is at and the things that we're doing, where we're trying to re-architect a lot of the ways we do business, it gets complex. And that's why I always think you need a long-term, medium-term, and short-term engagements to constantly fill your portfolio. And so with that kind of aside, though, 90% of getting a recommendation accepted is being at the right place at the right time with the right information. I've probably shared the same information 100 times to certain groups, but the right person with the right ears in the right format, framed in the right context, the 101st time is when we were successful, right? And so it's real, and it's different for every organization, right? Like how they consume information, what their priorities are, what their bandwidth is, what's their willingness for risk, right? We have some organizations who were so hesitant to get onto ARM. And I'm like, you're running your dev environment on your Mac laptop, which is ARM, but like you can't, like contemplate putting this onto ARM elsewhere, right? And so, but that's okay. That was their prerogative. That was their risk tolerance. So what we did was we found other people and we built, wins and stories where we've successfully done it and we haven't burnt down the house. And so once they saw that, hey, 10% of Adobe, and then these other, customers that they respect or the same size and scale and complexity are doing it, then it's like, okay, like now I'm interested, right? And so just because the door is closed right now doesn't mean that the door is closed forever. And so like keep those opportunities in your back pocket, get wins, market those wins, right? Keep engaged with those customers, and you'll be surprised when you can go back and revisit, right? Because ARM wasn't something that, was all in one day, right? It was years of building up success stories that allowed us to then hit the ground running in 2024 and have the wild success that we did. But it wasn't like I just woke up and was like, we're going to move stuff to ARM. Here's a bunch of data. No, we've moved X workloads over. We've successfully done it. We've created runbooks and workbooks so that it's easy for you. We've brought in our cloud providers to partner. We've created dashboards and telemetry. We're creating leadership boards, right? Like we created an entire campaign and program around this. That's why we were successful.
Incredible. And Sridhar, now that we understand better your perspective and philosophy, can you share with us how you built your team, which is obviously very unique in the industry?
Yeah, I would say, at the core, we are a cloud operations group, right? So our job is to facilitate development on the public cloud and make it very easy for people to basically get up and just start deploying, right? And take all of that ops out of their control and make it easy and automate as much as possible. And so in that way, I feel like we have three large buckets of areas that we operate in. One is run the business, right? So, everything from account vending and, anything around account management, governance policies, those types of things to make it easy to operate across multiple clouds. That all sits within the cloud ops organization, and we have a part to play in that world. Billing, our RI management, ISP management, our relationship with the cloud providers, the support team, the customer success managers, things with CSOs and outages. We interoperate within that space. There's a second bucket of just save money, right? Like we pay the bills by saving money, right? And so we have a large swath of engineers that go through across all of Adobe, and they're going and doing things that traditional FinOps practitioners are doing, right? Hey, I have data sets. I'm reaching out to product teams. We're working through to figure out what we can implement. We have another group within that space that are working on medium-term problems. Like one problem that we're trying to address right now is how do I avoid NAT gateway charges by creating, endpoints within our data center? Can we bypass NAT gateway and essentially, save across for Adobe? So those are like medium-term projects, right? And we have groups of engineers working on that. And then we have the larger projects like CPU 26 for 26, which will be an entire program we run for a year and a half. We're building all the infrastructure going into the campaign for next year. And then we have engineers and consultants who will go out and help teams achieve their goals for FY26. And so we break that down there. And then I have a last bucket. So that's like my savings bucket. I have a last bucket where I just call solving problems or getting shit done is what I call this group. And so they're just architects and engineers that, hey, if there's friction or challenges, and they may be efficiency related, they may not be directly efficiency related, but it earns goodwill with my customers because I remove those barriers, I save them hours, I improve their performance, all the things that aren't necessarily tied directly back to dollars. So when I do have asks for the dollar side, we've built up that cachet, right? Because we are helping remove problems and barriers for our customers. And they don't come to us thinking we're trying to penny pinch. They come to us thinking we're offering solutions for them to reinvest back into their business. And it changes the mindset of how they approach FinOps with us.
Wow, sure. That's mind blowing. And thank you for sharing so many interesting concepts and actually shattering a lot of the conceptions that I had before. It's really, really great to see. I think while a lot of the stuff are more fit for like very large scale like Adobe, still a lot of the concepts are things that are anyone can take and implement in his organization. Sridhar, I do want to talk about you personally a bit more before we wrap things up. And we know already that you have a family band. What does that mean?
Well, thank you for promoting that. Uh, I live very close by in Ann Arbor, Michigan, with a lot of my family members. Like my sister is in the area, and I have a bunch of cousins, and um, they're all musically inclined. I'm terrible. I probably could fail at the cowbell if they gave me that somehow. But what we've decided to do is just play together and start putting together set lists, and we play gigs for free for tips and food, and we're able to just all pick songs that we like, and have people interoperate and play. And sometimes we get even the young ones involved, like my nieces and nephews will participate on some of them. And so it's more just the joy of playing music. We'll set up like a stage in the backyard, and we'll even have like live music play for the neighborhood then too. And uh, it's just an opportunity to hang out with family, but also do the things that we love. And so, luckily, this is actually applicable to FinOps as well. The key to being a good FinOps practitioner is hiring a bunch of people way more talented than you and surrounding yourselves by them so they make you look good. And that's what I do. That's what I do with my family band as well. They're far more talented than me and cover up for my shortcomings. So.
Yeah, and definitely can be applied to many, many other roles out there. And I see this guitar behind you. So you're playing the guitar?
I am playing the guitar, or play is a strong word. Attempt to play the guitar quite often, but no, it's been great. And just seeing three generations of family interact with each other, and like playing Taylor Swift songs, even though I don't know anything about Taylor Swift, while they sing is such a blast, right? Like I just seeing the joy in their eyes and everyone having a good time is phenomenal.
That's incredible. Give me a lot of inspiration. And anything else you do for fun except for music?
I'm a big uh, collectible card game player. So like Magic the Gathering, Universes, Flesh and Blood. Any card game I will play. I don't care. I'm a math nerd, so anything that has systems in place with math involved, I can't help myself. And I play Warhammer with a bunch of collectible figurines that you paint and roll dice and play against each other strategically. So yeah, I like just solving problems. I love math. When you combine the two, it's something that tingles in my brain, and I feel like FinOps is the same way. There are challenges of resourcing and availability and investment and ROI, and finding how those Lego blocks fit together to make the most optimal kind of shape for your business is kind of what we do. That's our business. That's what we're in. So, yeah, I do it for fun, and I do it in my hobbies too. So,
That's awesome and really inspiring, Sridhar. I already told you that. I will say it again. That was really mind blowing. Like it was really, really different perspective than I think what I'm used, and I'm sure the entire industry used to hear about FinOps. Obviously, a lot of that is connected to your scale at Adobe, which is obviously massive. But a lot of that we can definitely take each and every one of us to his own day to day in his company. Sridhar, I'm sure there will be tons of people, tons of listeners that would like to reach out and ask more questions. What is the best way to reach out to you and learn more?
oh, absolutely. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love meeting new people. You can just look me up, Sridhar Ayala. I'm at Adobe. You can also just email me at sayala@adobe.com. And if it doesn't go to a filtered email, I probably will respond back to it. But I will kind of close with this. And Alon, I think the unique perspective that I bring to the FinOps space is exactly why I love doing this. And it's an element that people don't consider as much, and it's the people element. Like, we're asking people to do things constantly, and it's not things that they necessarily want to do or are a priority. And so, how do you go about that, right? It's a people problem. And so, if you don't have the people element in your equation or part of your strategy, you're not going to be successful, right? And so, please, like, all the other stuff is important. It's going to help you. But one thing you can't replace, and the one thing you as a practitioner bring to the table, is the relationships and the people element. And don't shortchange that, right? The importance of it. It's more important than you think, if not the most important thing.
It's absolutely a people problem. I really agree with that. And that's a great message to use to wrap things up. Sridhar, thank you for everything you've shared with us. It was really fascinating and interesting and relevant. So really thank you for joining us today.
No, appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Thanks, Alon.
For sure. And I also like to thank our listeners for joining us once again. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I did and learned a lot. I learned absolutely a lot. Thank you again, Sridhar. This has been another fascinating episode of FinOps in Action. Hope to see you next time.
That wraps up another episode of FinOps in Action. Thank you for joining. For show notes and more, please visit finopsinaction.com. This show is brought to you by Point 5, empowering teams to optimize cloud costs with deep detection and remediation tools that drive action.